Hi everybody, Carol Garrison here with Carol's Creative Escape. I apologize, I am running a few minutes behind tonight. I was working on the card and honestly kind of lost track of time as I was trying to figure out my other papers. So I apologize for running just a little bit behind tonight. I am continuing with my quest to use my stash, and as well as using my stash, also kind of going retro maybe a little bit on, hi Ann, thanks for joining. Going retro a little bit maybe on some techniques. So one of the things that I had in my stash, so I am using my stash, is a book of samples. I'll kind of show you what that book looks like, and I think I may run through and try to do some of those different cards. So thank you so much for joining me. My name's Carol Garrison. I am a paper card crafter maker from White Bear Lake, Minnesota. I've been making cards for over 30 years, and my goal is to simply spread joy one card at a time, primarily to encourage people to send cards, perhaps make cards and find that inner creativity that you didn't think you had. Or even maybe encourage somebody to send a card to you, and so that you get the joy of receiving a card. Most importantly for me is to just spread a little joy. And like I said, if I can help somebody find that hidden creativity inside of them, it's all the better, because I know mine got lost for a little bit, and it took some encouragement from a card maker to help me find it again. So it is April 7th. And I hope everybody had a good week. We came off of a really beautiful weekend, and then we've got a couple more days now where it seems like it's going to get really cold, but they're putting temps up to 68 by the end of the week. So I am looking forward to that. Just nice warmer weather. I did get a couple of my spring chairs out to decorate the front of my house because it was looking a little blah, but other than that, we haven't touched anything. Let's just jump in and get started on this card. I'm already running late, so I don't want to keep people any longer. I do appreciate everybody who's taken time out of their schedules, either through watching it live or also through maybe watching it on replay. I do appreciate that. And I'm going to try to make my camera go a little bit larger tonight. Not quite that large. That looks pretty good. And look, I did a pretty good job getting it straight tonight. I'm leaving it. I'm not going to touch it. I do want to plug my phone in, however. One of my, oh dear. One of my fears is running out of power partway through a live and having my phone die on me. So let me just mess around with stuff here a little bit, because of course when my phone stand just started going down, I think we're going to go with this and count it good. So anyhow, this is my book of different this is primarily card techniques. Some have been changed, and so there's easier ways to accomplish some of these techniques. And in some cards, it's the same way or a little bit harder. So tonight, I'm going to work on the designer paper Chevron technique, and we will recreate the card, but there's all sorts of fun things in here. So it's just a matter of where I decide to go. Lots of opportunities, though, that's for sure. So with that in mind, I am going to start tonight's card, and like I said, it's called the Chevron technique, and I think you can kind of see why. What I really like about this technique is, first of all, it's a great conserver of paper, because you're really only using 1/4 of a piece of colored cardstock, and you could actually create an 8.5 by 11 of the background that I'm doing and just cut it down to the size that we need with just a little bit of scrap. Yeah, you'd have ink on the back that you're attaching to the paper, but it still might be quicker than trying to do the individual. So again, it's a fairly simple card to be able to recreate. So just a simple birthday card here. Let me get you the measurements. Again, even that is not a whole lot involved. It is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of cardstock. And then this is a, it says in the directions to do 5 1/4. I did like 5 and just over 1/4 because I found as I was laying my chevrons that worked a little bit better for me. And then it is scored at 4 inches. So 5 1/4 plus a smidge is what I will tell you. And then for my birthday sentiment, I know which one I'm going to use and how it's going to work. So I do have a scrap of basic white cardstock that happens to measure 1/4 inch by 2 1/2 inches. And then I've got a piece of blue cardstock. This measures like 3/8 of an inch by just over 2 1/2 inches. It's just going to give it, I think, a little bit of a border. If I measured correctly. And then the only other piece that I need is 5 pieces of designer series paper. Each of these measures 1 inch by 2 1/2 inches. And that is all that it takes. I do need to grab the stamp set that I need to get my happy birthday sentiment out of. This one. Yep. All right. And so I am just going to go ahead and jump in and get started. The first thing I want to do is my happy birthday sentiment, just so that I can set it aside to dry. Plus, I'm a titch concerned that it might take me a couple stamps to get this one right, because I pretty much got to get it perfect. One of the things that I do, especially when I'm doing photopolymer stamps, is instead of trying to get it on straight like this, I need to first wipe off. If you have photopolymer stamps that aren't super sticky, just wipe the back off on your chamois or other cleaning cloth. That just gets some of the buildup off and returns the stick to it. If we handle it with our fingers, our skin oils and stuff get on there. But one of the things that I do is, instead of me putting the stamp on the block, because sometimes you could have it going just a little bit crooked, I flip it upside down on my work surface and I attach it that way. I've never really had an issue with a crooked stamp when I've done it that way. So that is my little trick for you. All right, so I am just going to ink this up. And like I said, I've got to have it lined up pretty good here. And because it is a photopolymer stamp, I am using a stamping mat, or a piercing mat. And I am just going to line up the edge of my stamp with the edge of my cardstock here. And I wiggled it. So we're going to try that again. And that is better. And so what I am going to do, because I did go to the edge here, I am just going to take my trimmer and I'm going to trim that little bit off, because I really want the letters pretty close to the edge. And we're going to be happy with that. It's hard when you're working with those little teeny papers sometimes. All right, and then the other stamping that we need to do tonight is to create our background scene on our cardstock. Now, I am choosing to use a stamp set that's kind of the orange rubber back, and so I don't need to use my piercing mat, but I am going to be stamping off the edge of my paper, and so I do want to make sure that I've got some protection from that. Now, I've got a little blob here. Again, I'm going to be adhering this to cardstock, so I don't really care about that. And I am going to stamp past my score line, because again, that's part of what I am trying to do. I am going to open my notebook up, because I want to be able to do second generation stamping. When I first made the butterfly card that I showed you, I didn't do second generation stamping, and it really showed. It was just too much. So I want to do my images as second generation stamping. So I'm just going to stamp off to the side and then stamp on. And this is still going to be dark, so I may end up even doing a third generation. Who knows? And I'm just going to randomly create a pattern. On my card. I'm going to test out. You know what? I'm going to go change and go do third generation stamping. Just I can tell it's going to be too dark, and then the chevron piece won't stand out. So I'm just flipping my card. Oh, that's not going to work for me to flip my card over though, because then when somebody opens it up, there's going to be fish on the inside. No big deal. At least I caught it before I got that far in the card, right? All right. So again, I'm cutting at, oh, I have ink on my hands. I'm cutting at just under 5.5. And then it's 4 inches by, or 8 inches, so I need to just take a 1/2 inch off. And then I'm going to score it at 4 inches. And again, that blob isn't going to matter because that will be the back of my card. All right. Now I think I'm ready to go again. So let's start inking up. And again, I'm going to do third generation stamping. Third generation just means I've inked off twice. And it just gives a slightly lighter color tone of the stamp that I'm using. And I actually don't want to do that one again. And there has to be no real pattern to what I'm doing. It's all just to be in the background. I'm going to switch over to the brown tone, and that means I do need to clean off my stamps so that I'm not getting the blue into the brown color. Oh, I just stuck my fingers in the ink pad. Anybody you do that besides me? I'm kind of thinking I'm not alone in that, but maybe I am. All right, so we're going to ink this up. And again, I'm going to do stamp off twice and bring my fish in. This one I'm doing more of an all over. It's going to be covering up some of the pieces in here, and I'm okay with that because I'm really just trying to create that background. You can do whatever you want. I think the dog has just thrown his ball into my area where he knows he can't go. And what's nice about this card is it is never going to look the same. Each one will be different because it's going to depend on how you've stamped your stuff up. I might have a little bit too much going on here, but I think it'll be okay. Let's put another one of these hooky things right there. All right, we're going to leave it. So it's just kind of an all-over design. It is meant to be in the background. It is not meant to be the focal point. And I think we've succeeded with that goal. So let me get... This one's got so much detail, sometimes you just need to press the cleaning cloth right into it to get everything off. All right. Oops, I don't think I cleaned this one now. That's it for the stamping. You can put as much or as little as you want on the background. This one I really overlapped. On my first card, I didn't do any of the overlap. Up to you how you want to do it. So this is going to be folded over on the score line, and I'm just going to take my bone folder and burnish it, and we'll set that aside. The only thing I do want to do is also stamp a sentiment on the inside. So we're just going to do a Let's Celebrate type stamp, and I need to get a slightly bigger block because this is a bigger sentiment. And since I'm back to photopolymer stamps, oops, look at, I got a little ink on the inside. I didn't plan that very well when I started stamping. I should have made that my back. It's a homemade card. We're going to leave it. I have learned that I can't fret about some of that little stuff. Now there is a quick tip I could give to help cover it up. So let's just stamp our sentiment here. Time to celebrate. Sometimes when you try to cover stuff up, it looks exactly like you're trying to cover stuff up. Other times, maybe it looks okay. We'll have to see. So I've got a scrap of my paper here, and I could just decorate the inside of my card like that, and nobody would know that it was there for any reason other than to decorate it. However, it does look like this piece may not be cut super straight because the lines are ending kind of funny. So let's just see. This is about 7/8 of an inch. We're going to line it up at. And then I'm going to just put my cutting blade, press it down so that I'm in the paper starting in the middle. And that tends to give you a cleaner cut because your blade is kind of stuck into the paper. And then I know it needs to be 4 1/4 inches long. So I'm going to make it actually it needs to be 4 inches long because this card is 8 inches wide. So we're just going to go like this and grab our adhesive. Put some on the back, and boom, now we've covered up where the ink spot was. That's just an extra piece, merely to decorate the inside, not to cover up any mistakes, right? Okay, so now we need to do our folding. I think before we do that, no, let's go ahead and do our folding because then we can attach it right to this paper. So the next thing we need to do is we've got our 5 pieces of patterned paper here, and the way I was told to do this is lay them out skyscrapers, like skyscrapers. So that's where I've got them. But the funny thing is you actually want the wrong side of your paper up when you start doing your folds. And that's so that the pattern is the bulk of the fold and the back side becomes just this little strip right in here. So to make this card, you're going to start by folding. Let's set aside 2 pieces for right now. You're going to take your 3 pieces here, and starting with this right hand corner, you're going to fold it over so that it forms a triangle and lines up with this outer edge. It helps to be as precise as you can be on this particular step, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And then you're going to rotate it and repeat that step again. So you're just going to fold that over. And you're going to repeat that with all 3 pieces, starting with that right corner and folding it over. And for me, it's easier to fold it like this once I grab that right corner. I tend to not keep it as a skyscraper. And again, just try to get it as close to that edge as you can. And I do like to burnish it with my bone folder simply because it stays flatter when you do that. So again, we're going like that. So we have 2 of our 3 pieces done. Repeat that one more time. And again, you're taking the right corner and folding it up to the left edge when you have it standing up in skyscraper format. Rotate it, right hand corner, fold it over to that left edge. I do twist mine because for me that's simpler. You can leave it standing up if you want to do that. And then again, I'm just going to burnish it. Now for these other 2 pieces, we're going to do the same fold, but this time we're going to start from the left corner and bring it to the right side. So fold it over. Burnish it, rotate it, fold that left side over, bring it to the right edge, Loki, come. Just calling the dog over. He was going to wander to the wrong side of the basement. All right, left hand corner, fold it to the edge. And burnish. Rotate, fold it over, and burnish that edge. So you're basically doing the same fold. You just have 3 that are folded to the left side and 2 that get folded to the right, and that's just so the chevron part works. Now, one of the things that I did as I was making my cards, I found it helped me to just come in with a little bit of adhesive. Sure it did. And just barely go past that crease, and that held the flaps down. This isn't a necessary step. I just liked having my paper held down further than what it did without doing that. And so it's just a little bit that I'm putting in there, and it holds that flap in place for us. Can't play with you right now. He wants to play ball. I don't even know where your ball is. Oh, excuse me one moment while I toss the dog his ball. All right, Now to put these on, you're going to start up in the corner like this. And I like to kind of lay mine out so I'm sure I've got my triangles right. This is a folded seam right here, so I want a folded seam here. So that's why we did the left and right fold. And then we're going to come back and we need seam to seam or folded edge to folded edge. I need another folded edge to folded edge and my last folded edge to folded edge. And this is why I went just a little bit longer on my white card here, because I found I just wasn't quite reaching. I was going over the edge when I had it right at 5 1/4, so it just helped to go slightly larger than that. And then I'm just adding a little bit of adhesive to the back. I'm not going corner to corner or anything like that. The big thing is I'm making sure my fold lines are snug to each other. And then I will come back and hit one of the, oh, that is not straight. This part you do want to be pretty accurate with so that it lines everything up. And I just noticed I have a little, I must have had a little slice in my cardstock along one edge here. So I'm going to go ahead and run a teeny bit of adhesive over it just so it stays held in place. It won't show up as much then. I just didn't want that corner to get pulled up. Loki, I cannot play right now. All right, we'll put that piece in here, and then this will be our last piece, and we will put it like that. That worked out much better doing the slightly larger piece. And then if you have any that you're worried about sticking up, you can just add a little bit of adhesive and put it down, but you don't have to do that. And then to learn how to use a tape dispenser here, good grief. All right, we're going to do this, and I am just going to center my card base. Looks like I might be a little crooked on my fold. Let me see if I can fix that. Sometimes you can make it a little bit better. All right, and then I'm just going to center this on my card base. Loki, no. Settle. That is not quite centered. Let's try this again. All right, so there we go. Now we've got it on our card base, and again, I'm going to just flatten it out a little bit from the inside. Then I need to adhere these two pieces together, and because this is really skinny, I'm going to grab my mat here, and this is my funny one because it's not even. We will add some adhesive, and whenever I'm doing skinny things, I know generally I'm going to be running over. The easy trick is to just take your finger and fold back any adhesive that's running over the paper that you've got. And then we're just going to stick it onto our blue paper here. And I know that this blue may be just a teeny bit too long. And so I'm going to make sure that I line it up on one end and top to bottom. And then all I need to do to get this to match is take some scissors and take off a little bit so it's fairly even. Sometimes when you're dealing with those really small pieces, it's almost easier to do that. And then I do want this to pop up a teeny bit, and so I'm going to put it up using mini dimensionals, and that's just because, again, I've got a narrower piece of cardstock here, and I don't want those hanging out over the edge. And then I do want to add, that is not staying closed. I do want to add a little bit of twine. Initially, I thought I was going to use this burlappy ribbon. I don't like how it looks, so I got rid of that. And I am just going to take some of my twine, and when I use twine, one of the things I like to do is take two pieces. It just gives it a little more volume. And then I'm going to get my handy dandy bow maker, and I do want this to be a bigger bow because I want it to hang out over my, or from under my sentiment. And so I think I'm actually going to go even bigger and separate my pegs here on this. When you've got twine or something that's been on a roll like this and it keeps twisting on you, if you just take your fingernail and kind of drag it, it'll take a lot of the curl out. You don't want to press down too hard, otherwise it becomes like a curling ribbon. But that gets some of the kinky spots, the kinked spots out, not the kinky spots. And we're just going to trim that. And now we've got a slightly bigger bow. And I am going to put that on to my sentiment. I'm actually going to add a couple more dimensionals, and the reason for that is these dimensionals are going to serve to hold this bow in place as well. And so that way I've still got the three that I had to keep it popped up and not sinking in the middle, but I've got the other pieces that'll help me with that. And I'm just going to put my bow on there. I'm going to turn it the other way, I think. Zoom. And that's the other thing, is when you've got those double bows, you can play a little bit with the size of each of the loops on your bow. And we're going to put it, I don't know, this way. And we'll just add that to our card. And we've got a little bit of zhoosh underneath it with that ribbon and a nice masculine happy birthday card using the chevron technique. So here are just two samples of that card using different papers, different colors. You could make this a thank you card. You know, you could really do any kind of card that you wanted. If you did it kind of baby themed backgrounds, it would even make a neat congratulations to the new baby type card. But it's called the chevron technique. So again, the base of the card is 5.5 by 4 1/4. This card piece measures 4 inches by 5 and just over 5 1/4, just a skosh. And then each of the pieces of designer series paper that I used measures 1 inch by 2.5 inches. 3 of them you start folding from the top right corner over to the left, rotating it, repeating that process. And on 2 of the pieces you would start with the left corner, folding it over to the right, and then you just lay it out in the chevron design. I do think it's better if you have a lighter design in the background, but that's my opinion, and you can do it really however you want. This could be a fun Halloween card too, or a Christmas card if you wanted it to be, using Christmas stamps or pumpkins and, you know, Halloween colored paper. I don't know why Halloween came to me, but it did. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this card and you'll give it a try. Again, it's called the chevron technique. If you have any questions, be sure to drop it in the comments and I will get back to you. Otherwise, if you make this card, feel free to post it in the comments and share it with others. I think we can all inspire each other. And I have no problems with that happening, because really that's how we learn best is from each other and getting ideas. So take care, everybody. Have a great evening, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.